No. So why do they say we have an immortal soul, but then the conclusion, so you shouldn't mess?
I think it goes back to natural law, what the Catholics believe in natural law.
And what is natural law?
Well, God constructed our bodies, our nature this way, and we shouldn't fuck with it.
Yeah, but nonetheless, but this is more complex. This already you introduce further hypothesis. How should I put it? You have.
Yeah, well, I think there's a better Aristotelian account. A lot of them will say that the functional dynamic of the body is the condition for you to have the immaterial principle of the mind. So if you change the functional dynamics, you run into the same possibility as killing somebody in terms of manipulating that principle.
That's tricky, because you know that here, again, as if you are truly an orthodox, in the good sense now, Christian, I think you should reject this. Okay, now this brings us into theological waters, but I think that I'm totally anti-Aquinas. I think he was the great Aristotelizer, how should I put it, of Christianity. And I don't think, but so that you will not say that I'm only making fun, one priest gave me an intelligent metaphor here. He said, imagine our brain as a radio receiver. Of course, our soul is immortal. But in order for our body to receive the message of our soul, we need a finely attuned radio receiver, which is our brain. And God created it to receive. And then the idea is that if we mess with our brain, it's just ruining the radio, and then you no longer receive the message. This is the most intelligent, at least for me, but I have another problem, we can talk about it here, and it brings us back to Hegel. I think this is another example where we should go further than Hegel, but being good Hegelians. Namely, Hegel, another enigma I had, and maybe you can help me here, with Christianity is why does the church advocate this weird notion, basically I simplify it, but nonetheless it is that if sex is only sex for procreation is specifically human, that you just do it out of pure lust, it's just animal coupling. My totally naive counter-argument isn't the exact opposite the truth. I mean, animals are doing it in this biologically determined treatment. They don't screw all the time, as we at least try to do. They do it just in the season for mating because it has this function and so on and so on. Isn't it that it's absolutely ridiculous to claim that in a true, I mean, it's even degrading for me, for what is not only physical, but if you want truly spiritual about a truly intense, out of love sexual act. It's clearly not just some mechanical lust copulating, but it's clearly ridiculous to claim that that surplus is somehow has to do, it may not have with procreation. What would be your answer?
It seems like there's a weird alliance between Richard Dawkins' notion of the self as gene, like we only exist as genes to reproduce, and the church's philosophy. And both, Steve Pinker told me this, both do not leave room for choice, for affirming one's self, one's sexuality, one's being, beyond that reductive principle.
I agree with you, and I will tell you something else here. This is why I think Dawkins is inconsistent. You remember that famous passage towards the end, if I remember correctly, of his selfish genes, where he introduces the famous idea of how do you pronounce it? Meme.
M-E-M-E.
Yeah, I know. I pronounced it in my primitive Slavic. Our writing is much simpler.
It's meant to rhyme with gene.
I know, of course, that's the point, of course. So when he says, but we are not slaves simply of our genes, because we can think, we can, as it were, become master. I mean, he simply postulates a space of freedom for which I think he doesn't account enough. And he was relatively intelligently criticized here by some other evolutionists. And I'm not here just playing, again, what I'm saying, let me, and you will see where this brings us back to Hegel. I'm not just playing here the game of who is right. The problem is more complicated. How the properly Hegelian view of sexuality should be, I claim, much closer to a Freudian one. It is not that simply you have, this is how even Hegel himself, but I claim here, and we should be here fearless and outdo Hegel where it's necessary. Show where Hegel, okay, as a fanatic I will say, the only legitimate criticism of Hegel is to show that Hegel is not Hegelian enough. No, but when he talks about sexuality, a little bit towards the end of his philosophy of nature, and then when he speaks in civil society part about marriage and so on, no? He basically adopts this, how should I call it, culturalization hypothesis. His idea is that sexuality is a natural substance, no? Animals screw the way they do, blah, blah, but we gradually civilize it, sublimate it, whatever, no? Like, sorry, I will try to be not like, I want to seduce a woman, or a man, or many women, or many men. This is, I do always to annoy Judith Butler when we talk, because she's opposed to binary logic. So I said, okay, let's be against binary logic. Why not only one partner, more partners, and so on. So that instead of just, I don't know how animals do, smelling your juices there if you are wet and then boom or whatever, no. We write poetry, we do all the shit we do. But basically we are slowly elaborating, how should I put it, reworking, culturalizing natural substance. Instead of smelling the disgusting smell or what, we have perfume. Instead of those whatever animal sounds, we write lovely. The idea is that there is some kind of a natural substance of sexuality which we gradually civilize, culturalize. I claim something is missing here. What is missing is what Freud would have called death drive. And what in entire German idealism, you already find it in Kant. I located it for the first time, where Kant talks about, in a wonderful, they're totally neglected today, writing on education. Kant mentions some kind of a wilderness of a human being. Exemplary can be discerned in a wild child, the child whom you cannot discipline, whom you cannot make obey the orders. And Kant says that something absolutely crucial there, which then repeats itself in Schelling, in Hegel. He says, this wild, undisciplined character, you know, a child who resists, beats, and so on, he says, this is not animal nature. Animals have instincts, they follow the instincts. It's a kind of a derailment of instincts. It's already denaturalized nature, but it's not yet culture. You know, and that would be the proper Hegelian view, that excess which we try to civilize through culture is not nature. It's the vanishing mediator. And I think that the Freudian name for this excess is death drive. Or sexuality. What is sexuality? What are we humans? Our sexuality is not the animal coupling. You eat, you shit, you sleep, and incidentally, when I'm in a bad mood, I almost would like to be dead. I read a story about some stupid bears or what animals who in the winter they grow fat, and then for the 6 months of winter they sleep. Every month they awaken, they go to urinate, drink and fuck and go to sleep again. For as close as I can imagine happiness, if you ask me frankly. But what I'm